Certain games are like Christmas morning. I can't wait to wake up, open all the presents, and find out if it really lives up to the hype. And for me, Control is absolutely one of those titles, because it's an honest-to-goodness single-player adventure made by a studio who are beyond creative. And how many of those do we get in this day and age? So I'm sure you can understand my anticipation as I traveled to Boston and PAX East to get my first hands-on time with Control. Would it be able to live up to the excitement crafted by its trailers and its promise? Or would it be another modern era gaming disappointment? Today, we are going to find out. What's going on, everybody? It's GhostRobo, and I'm so pumped to talk to you about Control. Remedy does fantastic work. I'm a massive Alan Wake fan. I thought Quantum Break was pretty good, and ever since Control was unveiled at Sony's 2018 E3 presser, I have been eagerly awaiting this moment where I could go play the game and tell you if it is a dream come true, if it's something I'm super passionate about, or if it's just another one of those games that tries to do something kind of cool and flounders. Well, I don't want to keep you waiting much longer, so let me start by saying Control is freaking incredible. It hooked me and grabbed me right from the first second. There's an immediate sense of place, of intrigue. It's all visually arresting and grabs you. What is going on in this oldest house? If you don't know much about Control, it is a super cool single-player adventure set in a single house with a single gun. This is the place where the government brings all sorts of supernatural, weird things and investigates. And now you are there to do just that. And for a game like this, a game called Control, they needed to nail movement and control. They needed to make sure that the character felt really good. Alan Wake, a little bit limited. Quantum Break, all of a sudden, you got a bunch of powers. Control is their best execution yet in this way, because it all feels so good. The way that you move and flow from one power to the next, from gunplay to levitation, from running to a quick slam, it all works like a beautiful orchestra. It's an orchestra of battle. The bullets that you shoot lead into flight as you reload, and then your levitating flight leads into an awesome air slam. That air slam gets you up close and personal, which then leads to you needing to utilize your shield, and then that shield will eventually be fired off as an offensive projectile. Or maybe if you want to skip the whole beautiful soliloquy, you end up just grabbing a couch, jumping in the air, and crashing it down upon the weird enemies that you face. And it all works super great. It doesn't feel wonky at all. Going from levitating to running, going from shooting in the air to shooting on the ground, even telekinetically lifting stuff on the ground and then carrying it up high into the air and dropping down, all felt nearly perfect. The spectacle and power of combat here is awesome, but thankfully it's not done in a superhero OP way. There's a nice balance because the enemies you face are versatile as well. Even the early foes that I saw could fly, had a shield, even a Healy orb guy to help them out. And this allows for you to utilize awesome abilities without making them meaningless, without making them so dominating that it feels silly. You get to have a really cool arsenal, and it seems like the enemies will as well. Now, the gunplay isn't god tier, but it's good enough to make every firefight fun. And I was a bit worried about the whole one gun thing, how that would play out, but since you can mod and mold this gun, it kind of feels like you just have a full arsenal anyways. You'll be able to transform it into something akin to a shotgun, to a rapid fire weapon, even a heavy energy beam. And the fact that you can pick up loot drops that will mod your gun even further, or maybe mod your character, enhances this variety, and I'm hoping that they're able to keep it fresh from a combat standpoint throughout. Now, the loot drops here are actually pretty smart because it helps Control enter the 2019 era of loot drops and modern mechanics without jeopardizing its single-player linear status. You don't have a bunch of multiplayer options, you don't have microtransactions, you just have some cool loot drops that I think will actually enhance the side missions in the oldest house. They're saying that you'll get some super cool drops from side missions, and the fact that you'll be able to better your character while also enjoying incredible environments sounds pretty exciting to me. And hopefully they're able to achieve a nice balance and make sure that it is worth your time, not only visually, not only story-wise, but also gun mod and character mod-wise as you progress through these extra activities. And they have super cool AI systems to help out with that. They do have a combat director that you may have heard about that helps pace the fights, and if you haven't had a lot of action lately, they're going to throw some enemies in. It sounds like a very cool and complicated system, reminiscent of Left 4 Dead, but they also have a system with the loot drops to ensure that you're never too OP or too underpowered, and they'll help give you stuff that balances your character based on where you are in the game. And wherever you are in the game, it seems like it is going to be a treat, because probably my favorite part, outside of the combat being absolutely brilliant, is that the world looks so freaking cool. This is one house, but so many different rooms. The visual variety I saw in probably 20 minutes of play was incredible, and I hope they're able to keep that up. I'm sure in the trailers and the footage you're seeing now, you can witness a very overgrown, dilapidated room, and you can see a very beautiful library maze and some very daunting, big open areas, and then some places that feel like they would belong in an office space. I hope they're able to keep that up and mess with the colors and make things really weird. Like, please get really weird with these environments. Please allow the walls and the places to tell stories. I think Remedy does that so well, and I'm hoping that this space, that this oldest house, begins to feel like one of the worlds from either Prey or BioShock, where there are memorable wings and different portions of the place that you will touch on forever and ever. I know there are places in Rapture that I will never forget, and even Prey started to feel a lot like that. I hope there are some rooms in the oldest house that are infinitely memorable. And it feels like there will be, because Remedy here is going back to their roots. They are being weird and wild and as creative as they can be. They've said that Quantum Break, while a fun project, did feel like they were trying to go a little too mainstream, and here, after partnering with 505 Games, they're doing exactly what they want. The graphics aren't perfect, they definitely look Remedy, but they're good enough, and it's extremely enhanced by this art style that has such a vibe and such a tone. You know, I'd like to describe it as a 3D version of Inside, the indie game from the makers of Limbo. That just evoked such an eerie sense of tension, but also intrigue. And I feel like Control is kind of like that, where every room could be absolutely disastrous, but you also have to press forward. It's like if Stranger Things were put into a house and you wanted to see exactly what was going on around every corner. And I got to see some more linear parts of the game as well. Those were pretty cool. Nifty scenes and different NPCs. I like what they're doing here, and I hope that the story itself grabs me. I hope that it has a hook. I think that it reminds me a lot of both Quantum Break and Alan Wake, but I hope that it leans more Alan Wake. I think that's a fine line between QB and AW, where they're both doing kind of a sci-fi storyline with weird twists and characters that are pretty likable, but I do hope it leans more towards the former rather than the latter. And in typical Remedy fashion, one of the highlights of the demo was a video clip, a live-action video clip, as they love to put in their projects. This one was on a projector, and it helped to showcase the tech that is on display in Control, because you could move the projector, you could telekinesis that projector all around, and the video would still play on any surface. The destruction is really impressive as well. You are throwing, as I mentioned, chairs and couches and poles and beams, and everything breaks apart. Everything gets messy. You can knock papers off of shelves and books out of cases. It's really, really nice how the world responds to your efforts. I like that a lot, and it goes a long way to making the place feel much more believable. I even like the fonts that they use here. There's these nice blocky letters that pop up to help identify where you are within the oldest house. I feel like they just get aesthetic at Remedy. And I don't know the scope or the scale of this place, but I hope that it is immense. They're talking side missions and all these places to explore. I really hope they're able to keep the variety up. I wonder if the big twist is that you leave the oldest house. I feel like that would be very apropos for a game of this sort, that you finally bust out. It almost has some essence of Portal there, where something might be kind of manipulating your adventure, and you're moving through these different spaces that kind of don't match up, and there's some puzzles as well, obviously very different from a combat and probably story perspective, but there are little hints that maybe you will bust out of this facility. I hope the puzzles are also tricky. I hope there are some that are more than just moving a switch here or there. I saw one where they had to guide a paranormal enemy into a holding cell, and while that was simple, I hope that the powers you have allow for some creative puzzle solving along the way. I hope that the stories are engaging. I hope that the world continues to shift and change, and I hope that they just go weird. I want this to be a game that oozes that Twilight Zone Alan Wake charm, and I hope that they push that as far as they're promising. While I loved almost everything, I do have a couple of concerns, one being the amount of abilities. I got to play with a bunch of them, and I'm not sure if there are any more. I hope that there's a few secret ones saved. Maybe it doesn't need a ton because they all feel so awesome, and if the enemies continue to shift up and the environments continue to shift up, perhaps the combat will stay fun, especially with the aforementioned gun mods and character mods that allow you to increase the fire rate, add extra health. Maybe there will be enough variety there that the initial moveset can feel modular, but I still want an extra power or two, especially since the game is promising some Metroidvania aspects where there's certain areas of the oldest house that you won't be able to access until you get a specific power. I think they were talking that about 75-80% of the game is open for you to see whatever powers you have, but that there will be a small chunk that does have these gates that require a certain ability. I can't even describe to you how awesome it feels to be in a pristine, almost quarantine-like office space, roll through a door, and instantly be immersed in a library maze, and then pop into another room and see it's overgrown with grass and greenery, and then wander somewhere else, and it's all sorts of strange colors and really eerie sights, and then maybe you find yourself in a hall that is immense and daunting, almost as if you're about to enter a devious lair. Now couple that with Metroidvania elements where you can't get to that super awesome space until you acquire a new power, and I feel like that's going to be so exciting to know that there is something remarkable just beyond. And yet you have to go explore, find a power, add it to your combat arsenal, utilize it for traversal, and then also have it help you unlock this new space. I think they have a great recipe, and I feel like they're going to nail it. That it feels cool to explore, that there is an openness and a flexibility, but also that it stays designed and stays with a nice intended path. Because for me, beyond all of the awesome little mechanics, I love that this game feels so intentional. You can tell that there were designers that handcrafted Control. And in a world where Battle Royale and massive online multiplayer games feel like a giant sandbox that can be fun, I like this diamond pit, where every little moment is specific, intentional, and in my opinion, more fun. I also got to see a boss battle that didn't win me over as much as the other elements of the game. These take place in the astral plane, so perhaps they'll evolve as the storyline progresses, and I'm sure these more monumental fights are better to play than watch. But thankfully, everything else about Control was incredible. It quickly has risen to the top of my most anticipated games list. I cannot believe it's out in August, in just a few months. We are in for such a treat. In an era when games feel more homogenized and generic than ever, I love that this is such a passion project with such a clear vision. And even with an awesome environment and what seems like a really cool and engaging story and concept, they nailed the moment to moment. That was so impressive. To have the combat, the control, feel so natural, feel so polished, and be such a joy to play. I promise you, once you get into the oldest house and you grab a couch, you levitate up in the air, you throw it down, you air slam, you dash back, and you start firing, you will be a believer, and you will know that Remedy is cooking something super special. And I hope that the size, the scale, the variety is in line with everything I've seen thus far, because if so, we're honestly talking Game of the Year material, at least for me. And I'm very, very excited for all of this to play out once the game launches in just a few months. So those are my impressions on Control. So freaking exciting, and as I said, such a relief. Let me know your take in the comments down below, everybody. How are you feeling about Control? Are you excited for the game? Hopefully this new footage has sparked some enthusiasm. I cannot wait to play, and we'll definitely be covering a whole lot more of it. In the meantime, though, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Drink some hot chocolate, and until next time, we will see you all later.